Hi, my name is Wally Block. I'm a professor in the Biomedical Engineering Department, and I'm here to talk with you today about teamwork. There's some slides that accompany this presentation, and if you open them up now, you'll see on the title slide that Professor Naomi Chesler also helped with the development of these slides. Now, teamwork in the BME design framework comes across somewhat as a fuzzy science, so that there's a lot of serious measured science and organizational behavior that goes on in this field, particularly by teams in the military, healthcare, and airlines, where teamwork is essential for safety as well as productivity. Research continues because in this example here on the third slide, we see in 1980 the U.S. men's hockey team, passionate, highly motivated group of college players beat a world of pro players, while in 2002 a team of all-stars was kicked out rather quickly. So it's more than just the talent that comes together to produce effective teams. There need to be means for those people to produce together. You'll find in your career here on slide 4 that the more successful you are, the more you focus on teamwork. This is becoming very much a focus in companies today because jobs today are complex, dynamic, and multidisciplinary. So you have to work together. You can't just be off on your own, as you sometimes can in a college career. Even academics are no longer an ivory tower. There's more and more emphasis today on multidisciplinary research, translational research, and the productivity of one's lab in securing future funding. So the goals for group development is that we'd like you to be functioning as a team rather quickly, communicating well, making good decisions, and resolving conflicts that arise. And most importantly, getting the work done. Over time, you'll find that functional groups concentrate on what they can change. They don't focus on individual personalities and styles of each of the individual members. You can have a team of rather eccentric people who function very well together if there's roles and norms and ways of resolving conflict. First, I'd like to speak a little bit about group norms. Norms are kind of the unspoken rules within your team. Does everyone arrive on time, or is that important to your group? Do people treat each other respectfully? Usually that's going to need to be important. Are there members of your group who don't adhere to the norms? And if so, are there ways that you can communicate these norms kindly to each other? Groups that adhere to norms usually are more productive and more cohesive. Now, we should point out that in the 400 class, where you're together for a couple semesters, our experience is that teams that don't have good teamwork don't have high productivity. In the 200 and 300 classes, where things move very quickly through the semester, often good teamwork will align with good productivity. Occasionally it doesn't. You shouldn't get hung up on norms and stop producing if people on your team aren't performing. Because in the end, your peer review often comes out to be how much did you contribute to the final output of the project. And so don't lose sight of that productivity for the norms of your team. There are several group development models. I have one here on slide 8, which describes what's called a punctate equilibrium model. And it talks about how there's a period of equilibrium at the beginning of projects. But then towards the middle, you start feeling some pressure. Are you going to produce that prototype on time? Are you going to finish the project on time? And it's natural that there's going to be this pressure because the productivity within the group does not follow a linear, straight line. Typically, it takes time to build up skills on a project that's never been solved before. And so you tend to make less progress at the beginning and more at the end, somewhat like a hockey stick. So midway through the project, you're going to feel like there's a ton of work that needs to be done. There might need to be some changes made in the group, but you also can't panic because you have to realize that groups tend to follow this type of curve. Okay. Well, next I'd like to talk about some communication styles. Some general considerations are that using simple and clear language is best, and avoid overloading information, the providing of information to your team. And also, there's how important it is to become an active, attentive listener. On slide 9 here, I have some of the tasks that are important for becoming an effective listener. Being able to hear others, understand what they're saying, remember what they said, evaluate the key points of what they're saying, responding, being able to respond to what they say, showing attentiveness, and not overly interpret any hidden meanings or hidden meanings you feel they may have in what they're saying. The next topic I'd like to talk about is the effective making of decisions. So over the time in your team, you might want to look to see how your team makes decisions. Does one member tend to dominate and the others feel ignored? Do you have best practices in place so that your team makes better decisions as a group than it does as individuals? That's really the key. You ought to be doing that. If you're not, then there's some things you ought to change. Now in the slides 11 and 12, I show some personal decision-making styles. It's important to realize that you probably have a certain way of making decisions. You may borrow from all these models, but most likely you tend to dominate in one over the other. Same as in the communication styles we went over before, you may tend to follow a certain communication style, one style more than the other. And it's important to realize that these aren't rather good or bad, but to recognize that there's different styles and they all have value in producing a better outcome as a group than you could as an individual. I won't talk about slide 12 very long because that model of making an analytical decision is very much the model we follow in the design class. You'll find great similarities in that. Good ideas in terms of making decisions are to promote open inquiry. Don't worry about rocking the boat. Complete open discussions lead to better solutions, but at some point it's necessary for you to rest your objectives and objections and then join in with the team in a common direction. You can also use smaller groups. If two smaller groups come to the same decision that's probably a good decision. Lastly, I'd like to talk about conflict resolution styles. A little four-square here, which is very popular with companies for demonstrating various aspects of strategy and getting these across to their employees or their stockholders. On one axis, we have concern with other outcomes, and on the vertical axis, we have concern with your own outcome. If you're not concerned with any outcome, that's called avoidance. You're not going to work on the project, poor performance. If you're highly concerned with your own outcome, but not with others, that tends to competition. If you're not concerned with your own outcome, but you're concerned with others, that leads to accommodation. Some people think the best thing would be a merge of all these things, which would be compromise. But really the best area to be is highly concerned with your own outcome and highly concerned with others. And that's called collaboration. You may tend to find that you can accommodate things for a while, but eventually the effects of that will build up and lead to a lot of nastiness, or rather some rather expensive therapy. The benefits of conflict are to bring problems in the open, motivate a better understanding of others, encourage new ideas, innovation, and change, and to improve your decision-making by challenging assumptions. It also enhances commitment of the team to realize that everyone values each other's input. Suggestions for resolving conflict. Go back to a point of agreement to put things into some type of context. What is it that you're disagreeing about? There may be a lot that you actually agree on. Move forward to the compromise, balancing your own concerns with others, and work to deal and identify with the sources of conflict, challenging the assumptions, and often trying to innovate or find a third way to a solution. If none of these work, you can seek an arbiter or a mediator, such as your advisor or client. There's some additional material at the end of these slides that I'm not going to talk about for purposes of time. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope you can apply this to the design class and other areas of your academics and perhaps even life in general. Thank you.